Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. We're going to get started in just a moment here. My name is David Mainiero. I'm the Chief AI Officer at AI Digital. For those of us who don't know us, I'm going to be speaking about AI Digital Labs, our AI adoption and transformation consultancy that we've built specifically for agencies and the brands that they serve. We operate at AI Digital Labs across a few different practice areas. We have an AI incubator program where we prototype and build custom AI solutions. We have our AI creative studio where we help agencies augment their creative production capabilities using AI, and our AI transformation consulting shop where we help organizations build real, durable, lasting AI capabilities rather than just sign up for another software subscription. So these are all under the aegis of AI Digital Labs, which is part and parcel of our broader effort at AI Digital to be a kind of full stack operating and growth partner for the agencies and advertisers that we partner with. Essentially, we want to be at the tip of the spear on the hottest topic of the day, and really any topic that agencies need support with, because that's been built into our DNA as kind of a force multiplier for our partners since our founding. Today, I'm joined by two people I really respect in this space, Mallory Benjamin from DS&CO and Greg Boone from Walk West. I'm going to let them introduce themselves properly in a couple of minutes because I certainly haven't done them justice. But first, I want to give you a bit of context for what we're going to do today. So what prompted this conversation is we went out and did something a little different. We ran an AI adoption survey a few months ago. Not the usual, are you excited about AI kind of thing. Real questions, pointed questions, directed at folks like you, the people actually doing the work. So we wanted to see what's really going on behind the curtain, not what people talk about on a panel stage or post about on LinkedIn and talk about in press releases. Those are all great too. But what's really happening inside agencies when it comes to AI adoption? How mature are you really? Where are you stuck? What's working? What's not? We got some really interesting, frankly, some pretty uncomfortable results. And I'm going to walk through the highlights as quickly as possible in the first 10 minutes. And then we're going to jump into more of a panel discussion and hear directly from Mallory and from Greg, where I'll flip into moderator mode and try not to talk too much. So the first thing I wanted to show you is an image of a duck. And why am I showing you this image of a duck? Because I want to show you what AI adoption looks like. You don't see it from the LinkedIn posts and the way people brag about it. What AI maturity and readiness looks like is under the surface. So it's not producing dramatic advantage right now for most people. But the people who are laying the groundwork, setting the kind of right footwork for the faster AI game that's to come, are doing quite a bit of work under the surface. So this is my duck paddling furiously under the surface. You don't see this, right? This is boring, unsexy work that's going on. It's labeling data, organizing your procedures and playbooks, and getting process revision in place to meet an agentic future. So that is what it looks like now. And that gap, which is maybe kind of looks like parallel train tracks right now, in 6 months, in 12 months, in 2 years, in 3 years, is going to become a chasm where the people who are paddling under the surface now are going to see those dividends pay off in that time frame. So I'm not going to talk too much about AI Digital Labs. I'll save a little bit of that for the end. But the tagline essentially is that we help agencies and brands turn AI ambition into action with strategy and training and operational implementation, with forward deployed AI engineering and delivery, custom agents, workflow redesign, tool builds. I know it sounds easy or too good to be true, but whatever our partners need in order to advance the ball on AI. So I wanted to start with a kind of a warm-up slide. If you all have your phones, you can kind of scan the QR code here to participate in the poll. There's going to be, I think, 2 of these throughout the presentation. You could also type in the URL at the top, the ahaslides.com/QNQFP. I see a few people joining. Good. It's working because it wasn't working 10 minutes ago. And I want to know, just don't think too hard about this. Where does your agency actually stand on AI? And if you're a brand, you can answer the question the same way. It's kind of like a 1 through 5. We haven't started yet. We bought some tools. We're experimenting informally. I've got a roadmap somewhere, or we're leading the charge. This is anonymous, so please just give your quick pulse. I want to get an understanding of where our audience thinks they are at the moment. Hmm. 86 people joining, but I don't see any submissions, so maybe it isn't working. Let me do one quick thing to pull up and see if I can see it live. Huh. No. Oh, yeah, I am seeing something. Look at that. Hold on. See if this refreshes it. Huh? All right, well, I'll read you the results. We have most people in the middle. I think about 30 people are in experimenting informally stage. Kind of, as you might imagine, it looks, oh, here we go. We're popping up now. Um, Oddly, it's excluding some of the results, but it kind of looks like a bell curve, which is exactly what I expect. We have a kind of small amount leading the charge. We have a couple of folks that have the kind of sweating emoji that they haven't started yet, people buying some tools, but really most people in this middle ground of experimenting informally. And this makes sense. This is kind of the core foundation of the survey results we saw, which is that people are well, we characterize this as kind of a pilot purgatory. That doesn't necessarily need to have a negative connotation, and I'll describe a little bit more of what that means. But we've got quite a few folks with a roadmap and leading the charge. I don't know why it's not showing on the screen, but 3 on haven't started and bought some tools. So this is a good representative mix. Oh, there. So, in terms of what we see in the data, when we asked agencies generally where they are in AI maturity, we came back with this idea that 66% are stuck in kind of pilot purgatory. Maybe they've got roadmaps, maybe they've got ad hoc pilots, maybe a few people are playing with tools, but AI is not quite fully embedded in how they work. I think 16% said that AI is genuinely embedded across teams with KPIs in place. That's it, 16%. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, everyone's ahead of me, they're probably not. But the thing is, the ones who are ahead are going to start to pull away fast. And so this is something that we need to address, this kind of confidence gap. Um, the numbers that really jumped out to me are that agencies rate AI importance at about 8.1 out of 10. They know it matters, but their confidence in kind of talking about it credibly with clients is much lower. It's a 5.9 out of 10. And that's a big gap. You know it's important, but you can't articulate what you're doing about it. And the story gets a little bit worse in the data. And when 57% of clients say, okay, we have talking points, but and so maybe they feel credibly they could speak about those talking points, but they don't have anything unique about AI. So there's no differentiated story or go-to-market message. When a client asks, what's your AI strategy? Most agencies I've seen are giving kind of a similar vague answer about analysis of data and speed and efficiency. And that is, I would characterize that as kind of a differentiation crisis that's hiding in plain sight. Um, so when we look at what were cited as the real barriers, what's actually stopping people, this is where the excuses get interesting. The Number one barrier is a skills gap in training needs, not budget, not technology. Your people just don't know how to use this stuff yet. And for the most part, you haven't invested in teaching them. And no one take offense to me saying you here. I'm using you as the collective survey result. Um, the number two excuse is too busy with daily work. It's a kind of a side project trap. AI keeps getting pushed to next week or next quarter because we've just got a lot of stuff to do. The spoiler alert there is next week's going to be busy and next quarter's going to be full too. Um, I have a friend who's a consultant who always used to say to me that what gets measured gets managed. And 46% of agencies are not measuring AI impact at all. So you can't prove it's working, which means you can't justify more investments, which means you stay stuck. Then roughly 30% of respondents had zero data or zero AI policies, whether it's usage or legal policies or privacy. So your team, I hate to break it to you, is using AI, whether you've told them that they can or can't. That's called the shadow AI problem, and it's fairly well documented in the literature. And it's kind of a governance time bomb if you don't try to deal with it. So kind of before we get into the panel discussion here, I know I've already talked a few minutes longer than I said I would. This is a slide I want people to sit with. This gap between agencies doing this and agencies waiting is invisible today. This is kind of the train tracks analogy I gave earlier. And it compounds in silence, right? The leaders are getting faster, more efficient, winning better work. The laggards don't quite feel it yet, but within 18 months, probably sooner, it's going to become a chasm. And we talk about this squeeze zone, right? Mid-sized agencies getting pressure on the kind of top of the market from holdcos building AI infrastructure above them and mega cap tech companies. And then on the other side of this kind of barbell are AI powered freelancers undercutting you below. So it creates this real squeeze pressure in the middle of commoditization. And if you find yourself having to pay this catch up tax of kind of the longer the wait, the longer and more expensive it takes for you to close the gap, that catch-up tax you'll pay in dollars, in talent, in client confidence, and in competitive positioning. So I want to give you, because I've said these things too, and I don't mean to poke fun at them because I've used these as well. I've seen them for years. This is the your excuses are expired chart. And we've all heard these reasons, right? Of why haven't we done more with it? Data privacy, information security. Well, if you say that's a concern, but 30% of you have no policies, like there's a gap there, right? If you haven't even asked your clients if you could use it, if you haven't presented confidence about it, I can tell you I've worked with some of the biggest banks, some of the most highly regulated companies in the world. They're figuring it out. So I promise you can too. It's a side project. 51.8% say it's this kind of side of desk. You're too busy rowing the boat to notice your boat actually has a motor. And every month is going to add to this catch-up tax. Unclear ROI is a goofy one. I think generative AI is like the best ROI you could find. It's infinite intelligence for something like $20 to $40 a month. But again, 46% of people aren't measuring AI's impact at all. So it's hard to say that if you're not measuring it. Clients don't want it. I think that's fairly demonstrably false. They're already asking about it in AI pitches. And if clients do say this, it's often opportunity masquerading as an objection. And it's on you to be able to explain that. We're in wait and see mode. We want to see the tech mature. I tried it 6 months ago. It didn't do everything I wanted it to. The tech is moving exponentially every day, and you're waiting linearly. So these best practices are being written now. The time is now. I really encourage you to kind of, if any of these resonate with you, just think about it and kind of put it out of mind and try to do something today that proves this wrong and moves your organization forward. So we're going to move on now to our panel discussion. We've seen the data. The survey is fairly unambiguous. AI adoption, I think it's fair to say, in our industry is uneven. Most agencies are a little bit behind of where they think they are, and the window to catch up is narrowing. There are kind of two ways to respond to this. There's wait and see, form a committee, monitor developments, revisit it next quarter, or do something now. Get honest about where you are, build a real plan, ask for help, and start moving. We obviously know which one we recommended in the loaded way that I've framed that. But now to kind of switch into moderator mode, Mallory, do you want to introduce yourself quickly? Quick version, your agency, your role, what made you personally decide AI wasn't optional anymore?
Yeah, you got it. Thank you for having me. So I'm Mallory Benjamin. I am the Chief Transformation Officer at Dixon Schwabel and Company. We're a almost 40-year-old agency that is located in upstate New York. We are independent, full service. And I think for me, why we decided to go in this direction and AI wasn't optional anymore, right? We're independent, we're mid-sized, we're facing all of the crunches in terms of resources, time, speed to market, and the competitive pressures that everyone else in these spaces are experiencing. And my unique positioning, I think personally, and belief system has always been very entrepreneurial. Our business was built very entrepreneurially, and we were founded on this idea of like, if something's moving, we've got to find it. We've got to see where the business can take us and move quickly into those spaces. And this was no different for us, right? So my role at the agency is really about innovation strategy and technology strategy. And so across those two parts, we started to just see there was a huge opportunity because we couldn't necessarily add resources to do the things that we needed to do. Is there a space where technology can help to solve that? Of course, absolutely. And so identifying that this was not a trend, it's a path to business transformation, and identifying what are the use cases and how do we be successful in using it was definitely key to our success and how we've been leveraging this in our go-to-market strategies as well. So that's me. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. That makes total sense. Greg Boone, Walk West, same question. Your agency, your role, tell us a little bit about it. And I know you've been leaning in hard and seriously, so tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Let me know if you can't hear me okay. I was having some struggles trying to log in today. So,
No
but
worries.
yeah, I'm Greg Boone. I'm CEO at Walk West. We're an agency based in Raleigh, North Carolina. And actually, I invested in Walk West when it was a two-person company 11 years ago. And I came back to run the company last year as I was starting to see a lot of advancements, and I had already leaned into AI. I'm a CEO. I've exited three times at this point, um, from an executive standpoint. Speaker, author. This is my fourth speaking AI engagement this week. I have two more, one today and one on Saturday, and then I fly to Bogota, Colombia next week to speak on the topic. And I'm just glad, David, that you got to be like the bad guy coming out the gate. You came with the heat that I usually have to bring and try to shake people up. I have a book coming out in September called AI at the Speed of Trust, and it's really about the human edge and trying to get people to understand the mindset shift necessary. I really started to lean into AI 3 years ago when the company that I was co-CEO was acquired in 2020 by Infosys, and so I became a part of a much bigger organization back then, and I was tasked with getting with a few other folks and trying to figure out what is this Gen AI thing and what is it going to do. And we all came back with the same thesis that it's going to be highly disruptive to some of the common tasks and things that people have done historically. It's going to really challenge the hourly rate. It's going to challenge the per seat license, right? And so I was like, hey, I need to lean in now and start to move to what I would consider service as a software, something I've been talking about for a few years now. And I've been saying AI first for last several years. And I can just tell you in 23 and 24, when I kept saying every company has to be an AI first company, to say that it was dismissed was not, I'm underselling the pushback. So I'm just glad that we're kind of getting here and we're having a conversation.
Greg, I want to pick on one thing you said. You said service is a software, and I think I know what you mean. I think some people might think you said that backwards. Can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, I say this all the time. It's like now you have, excuse me, you have technology. And so just for background, again, I didn't really talk about this, but I have 35 Gen AI certifications. So I've really invested time and energy. MIT Exec Ed is using a case study that I presented a year ago to Leadership in the Age of AI to current Exec Ed students, right? And my thesis of my case study was around this idea of the hourly rate going away because you're going to be able to create a lot more value, in a much shorter period of time, right? You kind of mentioned, David, that people are already asking for what is the AI rate. It reminds me of the 2020, what was the COVID rate? I kept getting that question from clients. We want the COVID rate, right? And so the AI rate. And so the idea is that if you think about the 80/20 rule, right? The Pareto principle, if you will, the idea that you're going to be able to use technology, right, to do a lot more and then wrap your service around that. And so what I do now is we're an AI first company at Walk West. Every single employee has at least one Gen AI certification. And so what I try to explain to people is it's no more this kind of broad productivity tool, the traditional SaaS software as a service, right? Now it's you've seen forward deployed engineers at some of the big groups, right? It's how can you use technology at the center, but then wrap the service around it, and that becomes one your defensible moat, but also the value that you're providing to your client. You're not just giving them software, right? And so you can use these tools in a very significant way now.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think something that I talk a lot about to our team is that we're in this kind of SaaS model from or mindset for 10, 20 years. And people are used to asking like, oh, I want to buy a tool that does that, or give me a tool that does that. And it's actually just how they're conditioned to think. They don't really want a tool or a subscription. What they're really saying is, I want this work done perfectly and fast and at very low cost. And if there is another model that is service as a software or whatever you want to call it, that could be quite resonant. So I might be mistaking your background a little bit, Craig, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know this is the case for Mallory. Neither of you are like studied computer science in college or are kind of developed backgrounds as coders for the majority of your career. You did?
Greg did.
Yeah, so my degree is in computer science, and I stopped
Okay,
writing
so
code
I
a
knew I
long
would
time
get it
ago.
wrong for you.
But now I'm a
So
vibe coder. I spent 5 hours yesterday
you're,
for a nonprofit vibe coding. So
that's right. I'm gonna show some vibe coding in a bit, but Mallory, at least for you, do you think that tell me a bit about that. Did you feel intimidated by not being a coder, or what did you do to kind of resolve that? Because Greg says he's a vibe coder now too, so I take it he doesn't need to leverage all of his, coding expertise. I'm sure it's certainly helpful, but tell us a bit about that because I hear a lot of people say like, "Oh, you talk about Claude Code, but I'm not a coder," and that might be pushing it a little bit, but I'm always surprised. Folks are always surprised by me just putting them in front of a screen and saying, tell this machine what to do and seeing what comes back. And then they come back and say, actually, I am a coder. So I'm curious how you've gotten through that kind of training and education gap and what gets you through it.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I started on the paid media side of the world. I was a media planner and buyer. I started in the traditional space. And then I was interested in what was happening from a digital perspective on the ad tech side, right? And so obviously there's a lot of connection to understanding how the internet works and not just being surface level. Here's ad serving, here's the top layer of the things that I need to do to get this type of work done. I've always been a very curious person. So once I start to learn it, I want to learn it all the way. I want to understand the layers and kind of peel those back. So, understanding what was happening from a theoretical perspective, from ad serving software to ad technology, how all those things sort of lend themselves to building cohesive systems. And then the machine learning software that was already embedded. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago now. Machine learning is not a new concept, right? So that was already being embedded into these tools and the software and the partners we were working with. And so really getting deep into algorithms and all of that level of understanding was really important to me. But once you sort of foundationally understood what was happening and how the tech worked, you're able to apply that to so many other things. I don't know database engineering, but I know enough about how the systems and the structures around it work to be informational and supportive in conversations with my teams that do that type of work. And I feel like AI is no different. We're talking about technology. We're talking about computer systems and basic computer engineering at the end of the day, right? So machine learning and some of these concepts that layer themselves on top of it, I think for me, it was an easy reach because I started to just foundationally look at what are the systems and structures behind these things, how do they work, and why do they work this way? And then because of the level of curiosity I've always had, you just started playing with it, right? That's the same way I learned any of these other things growing up in a media agency. Nothing we do stays the same tomorrow. That's the play and the exciting part of working in an advertising agency. And so being interested and really digging in and understanding, if I do this, then these things can happen. It's just experimentation at a very base level. And so I think there's always just an empowerment that happens when there's something new and you start to take it on and learn from the tools and the technology and see how it can be applied to the work that you do and also the work that your team members are doing and help them to be successful at whatever it is you're trying to accomplish together. So for me, it was, more or less curiosity, like coming into it with an open mind and just taking the pieces that I did understand and looking for the gaps in the rest of it. And you don't have to know computer science, and you don't have to probably even go that deep to really understand what the best practices are and how to get what you need from the tool. And it's now becoming so semantic in how we're communicating with it that it's going to continue to flatten that usability curve for people where they're feeling like the tech is too complex to really understand how to engage with it and get what you need.
So I agree with all of that. I've when I've said similar things, I've heard people's or kind of seen people's eyes glaze over when I say the word. It's like, oh, you said machine learning, you said database. That I don't do those things like blinders. But so I want to kind of distill down to what you actually were saying there, which is
Yeah.
I'm really curious. I tried. Sometimes I failed and I learned things, right? I
I
think
fail
that's
a
what,
lot. Yeah, absolutely. And I
and
fail a lot, right? I fail way more than I win. I think that's the part that people, you only share the successes most of the time. But I think we've really tried to normalize here. And, we'll probably talk about some of these areas later. But from a practical standpoint, share when you fail, right? Because we're all going to learn something from the failures. And what did you learn about what you failed that's going to help you be successful the next time you're trying to accomplish that same thing? So, adapting that is definitely key to being successful with the tools.
totally agreed. And that's why I actually I was leading Greg a little bit, but I obviously mistook his deep computer science background. But my personal opinion, Greg, is that your experience as a CEO, a founder, an entrepreneur is way more relevant here because that's what's making you successful. And obviously the coding expertise helps as well.
Yeah, I don't, it's not as if I'm spending a lot of time looking and reviewing the code, right? It's to your point, what Mallory's describing. A lot of times I tell folks, I'm like, there's the 5 C's of humanity that AI, at least right now, won't replace, which is curiosity, creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration, right? And as I spend a lot of time with marketers and executives, and I say, a lot of times you have those innate qualities. It's up to you. You're choosing whether or not you're leveraging those or not right now, right? And I love the fact that you had all those excuses earlier, David, because I've heard so many of them over the last 3 years, and I try to, you know, I've been told that I say the quiet part out loud, right? And it's because I'm trying to get people to better understand. But there is a level of there is one challenge, and one of the things I do push back sometimes is on the curious piece of you will have people like Mallory, like myself, like David, and others that are very curious, but not everyone has the they don't have the empowerment within their organizations to be curious, right? And so what I tell people all the time, it's like you can't. This is the most advanced technology in our lifetime, and people are telling other folks to just be curious. I said that's like me teaching my little kids about fire by throwing matches and gasoline on the floor and saying go nuts. They're either going to burn themselves or do nothing, right? Now I'm not saying that that's you do have to be curious, but and we'll get to this later. People have to invest in actually learning and understanding what you can do, right? The greatest thing that OpenAI ever did for AI adoption is make it feel like Google search. And the worst thing that OpenAI ever did was make it feel like Google search, right? Most people are treating it like Google search. I was like, I'm not searching for anything. I AI instruct. I have it build things for me, but I also have a understanding. I had to break my own mental model as to what I believe the thing could do, right? And so a lot of the, sorry to be long-winded, but a lot of the parallels that I see a lot of times that people try to equate to how they historically think about technology are limiting. When people say, "Oh, it's just a smart intern," I was like, I don't know any intern that can go, do deep research, pull in your 10K, create an entire new website, create a visualization. All that's like when you do these things, we pigeonhole the capabilities of the technology, right? But once you keep pushing it and you tell it, and it's natural language processing, which effectively just means you talk to the damn machine, just talk to it, tell it what you want to do, right? So
Yeah, I totally agree. People say that English is the coding language of the future. The only thing I disagree with that is, well, two things. It's the coding language of now, and it's any language because you can speak whatever. You could speak Klingon to your machine, and it'll code for you. So I want to get specific, kind of into the first bullet on the topic list. Maybe starting with Mallory. Mallory, can you walk us through a concrete example of like an AI use case you've actually deployed or are using that changes the way your work gets done? Something that's, part of kind of your MO of how you do things now. And then Greg, I'll have the same question for you. And while we do that, I want to entertain everyone a little bit with changed Mallory and Greg's photos to match the background a little bit. And I have a few more for you, I promise. So
Great.
go ahead.
Love that, David. It looks like we're hanging out, David.
You're really close. Yeah.
We're getting close. We're getting close. All right. So back to the question. I would say there's a few different use cases, right? So getting specific, there's some really basic ones. So kind of starting with some foundational things, I would say personalization of ads. So there's obviously in the type of work that we're doing, we're getting creative. We need creative generated for multiple audiences that we're trying to reach in campaigns. We've been dynamically serving. We've been looking at audience profiles. How can we get more niche about who those people are, what things really matter to them, and get the version creation happening at scale? So that's a really simplified example. And, in terms of tools and steps, it really depends on the client and the situation and what tools we have to sub out. But a lot of this can really be created in the tech stacks that we're already working within, right? There's, Google Studio, Google AI Studio, you have Firefly. Those are all things that many agencies already have access to, and it doesn't create this need to build a whole new tech stack to do that. I think like where we're, currently at is really building those into automations and automated workflows so that they're not human as in the loop as they are right now. And I think some of that is because there's been a desire from our organization to really maintain the human in the loop. And so understanding and kind of, I guess, baby stepping, it's a little slower than I'd like it to be, frankly. But baby stepping what that looks like for people so that there are touch points where there's more physical hands-on keyboards to be able to kind of regulate or stop something if it needs to and reposition something. But those are all things that we're definitely working on. One of the things right now, practical use case wise, is what we're calling our AI accelerated model. And essentially it's taking any of the work that comes into an organization that's being created from an existing kind of templated format or brand guide. Like we all know what those creative services look like, and building that into more structured formats that are easily able to be manipulated more quickly, get you different versions and variations, make those changes and get them out the door more quickly for clients, just helping with speed to market. Obviously, some of the more strategic work isn't really a fit for that model, but it's really just about getting things done faster at the speed to market that clients are expecting. The last, I guess there's probably like two really good examples that I'll briefly share. One is really around, it's predictive modeling, but it's really mixed media model based on independent client data and their actual performance data, any sales data or data points that they have down to those key levers of success for them. I'm trying to be non-specific about the client category right now. And what we're doing with those is basically using that information to feed back through the model loop, key information around like geographic targeting, any sort of points of audience data profiles, demographics, going to like even more deeply connected to their customer data points to build out performance models that help us to optimize campaigns at that scale and bringing that data set back in, closing the loop on the data side of things. And then also we use it from a new business perspective because we've done so much of this transformation work on our own. We have a few partners, you guys being one of them, where we work with like a data architecture firm and then an AI implementation firm that does more like modeling type of exercises, and they have data scientists on staff and a full team of former university employees doing this type of work. And we're kind of building out a model where we're helping our clients kind of bring this type of thinking into their work, because so much of what CMOs need to deliver to CEOs is connected to data points and being able to demonstrate true ROI and having that closed loop from the standpoint of we have our data infrastructure in place, we have data architecture where it needs to be, and it's sound and ready for AI programs, building AI programs that extend past marketing use cases, but include marketing use cases, which are oftentimes not accounted for in the programs that you're trying to build, and then bringing that back full circle into performance measurement, and then how we're optimizing programs full circle. So kind of taking some of the work that we've done for ourselves and our clients and repositioning that as a new business go-to-market strategy for us to acquire new clients.
That's super interesting, and obviously I know a bit more of what you're doing as well, and it's all quite advanced. I think about how, and you definitely touched on both of these. I just want to give Greg another kind of dimension to pick out a little bit. That when we saw in the survey that most agencies are focusing on AI for efficiency, right? Like faster emails, quicker reports, different format of a report. I want to push a little bit too on the other side of, and you definitely just touched on this, Mallory, using AI to do things you just couldn't do before, or were so costly before to be impractical. Or you touched on kind of winning business you maybe wouldn't have won or wouldn't have gone after, or changes in kind of the business model. And Greg, I know you have a lot to say about this as well. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that differentiation. The way I see it is kind of efficiency, productivity, and on one side, and like white space or greenfield opportunities on the other.
Yeah, I have one prompt for you, David. If you can add a hoodie to my shirt, that would be awesome because I'm loving the style in this
Oh,
picture.
I forgot. You've earned a promotion here.
Oh man, now we're
Oh,
talking. Look, now we're cooking, right? I
we
tell
are.
people, I tell people all the time that AI provides speed and optionality, right? Like what you just showed, like before, the idea of having 10 different variations in a matter of seconds of whether it's this image or any other thing, right? When it comes to kind of use cases, there's a lot of different use cases, but I teach AI. I teach, I help companies actually adopt AI. And last week I was with an insurance company and there was 10 folks in the room, and me and my co-trainer, we showed how to do basically a month's worth of work in 10 minutes. And that is both exciting and shocking for people, right? When they see it, because I'm not talking, I just want to repeat it, a month in 10 minutes. I'm not talking about shaving off, a couple of hours here and there. And that's the radical change that folks have to think about. Just as a data point, we spend, especially as knowledge workers, we spend 50 to 60% of our work week searching for things to do our job, copying and pasting and reformatting data. 50 to 60% of our work week. Salespeople spend 70% of their time doing administrative tasks. That means they're only spending 30% actually out selling, right? And so, but with AI, you can actually get a lot of that time back. So some of the practical ways that I see people using AI, I think efficiency gains are great, right? I do think there's this concept of MIT will talk about the forgiveness continuum, where they basically don't deploy AI directly onto your external customer first. We haven't really learned to figure out how to do these things internally because the forgiveness is not quite there on the external facing things, right? And so what I tell people to do as a starting point, we use things like granola or otter or whatever to transcribe meeting notes. Everybody's doing that, but then using that to then quickly do deep research, whether using ChatGPT or Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, they're all within about 95% of the same level of capabilities, and then taking that quickly and turning that into some type of asset. I used to do it as almost like a little parlor trick a couple years ago. I would run it through Gamma, or I use GenSpark quite a bit now. And minutes after I get off the call with someone, I'll go ahead and send them a very polished deck talking about all the things that we talked about, next step, outcomes, things that we can do. And they call me back and say, hey man, how'd you do that? Right. But the thing is, most folks are still stuck in AI basic, and we can talk about that a little bit later. Then outside of just kind of, because as a business leader and executive, the amount of presentations that I have to give and pass around and have conversations is ridiculous, right? And so being able to use these types of tools to quickly get things out, and then you flip the time, the time equation. Now it's more about, let's have a thoughtful, strategic discussion. Not, am I going to get every pixel correct in PowerPoint that I spent 5 hours doing this? Cloudflare was down last year for like 3 hours in the morning. And so all the AI tools were down and my team was doing wellness checks on me and they were coming in. I was like, I am not going to do math by hand. There is no way I'm working on this stuff until it comes back, right? And another kind of practical use case is I always tell folks now with AI, I can go directly from kind of an idea to a prototype or a type of reference application. No more of this executive vision charades where it's like, it sounds like it's 2 words, and then 6 months later, everybody's pissed because nobody's in agreement of what we made, right? And so I'll use whether it's Lovable or Base 44 or just Claude or Claude Code. I think by calling it Claude Code, people get a little bit scared by it. It's Claude Talk. I don't know what you want to call it. Claude Conversation. It creates the code. You just talk to it. And so I would say presentations, prototyping, again, getting things out quickly. And then you have the reality that the clients are starting to expect it, right? So the idea I'm going to take 2 weeks to get them any type of prototype or asset, they're like, nah, I'll just move on. And so I tell people whether it's the efficiency gain or the market sophistication, you have to start moving this way, right? Or your clients will turn you off.
Yeah, you mentioned something that's a term I use a lot, and it's like a bit of a self-deprecating term, this parlor trick term. And so I'll show you a neat parlor trick here. Can you see my Claude Cowork window? Is that up on the screen?
Yes. Yep.
So this is what I did at about 11. My wife just had a baby, and so I've just come back from paternity leave. And at about midnight last night, what I did is I popped into Claude. By the way, this is Claude Chat, just like Greg was saying. This is Claude Cowork. So let me just pop back in there. And all I did is I said, tomorrow I'm doing a webinar. Here's the prep outline, which is what we went over last week. I need to create a short deck to guide my panelists, make it beautiful. Here's the 2 white papers that I've already published that I want you to base. It's got my key points, and I want you to tee them up with the rest of the panelists. I dumped in our prep outline, which is also AI created, of course, and it goes through, figures it out. You see it creates a to-do list. I'm going to review the uploaded stuff, the deck slides. I'm going to write a full 50-minute moderator script. I'm going to save the script to a local file, and you could click in, you could see what it does. Okay, I'm going to figure out how to convert a PowerPoint to images and vice versa, and it goes through it all. And I don't remember exactly how long this took, maybe 25, 30 minutes. Gave me instantly a deck that was, 95% of what I needed. And I said, good, but I want the excuse of their expired chart in there. It added that. And then I said, I want to add some polls, give me some polls. And so, I had a workable product within one shot prompt while I was sleeping. And I
While you
did
were
the
holding
rest.
the baby, you mean? While you were holding
That's
the baby.
right. That's right. That's right. While I was sleeping in quotation marks. So let me pop back up the deck here.
That's an awesome
And
example, man, of that's what I tell people, like you get a higher quality of work, it gives you a higher quality of life. Like the idea that like I have these things spinning and they're cooking behind the scenes while I go do something else. And then I can focus on the strategic element and kind of review and the human in the loop. Sorry to cut you off, but that's awesome, man. And congratulations.
no, definitely. And that's not like, look, would that have taken me a crazy amount of time to do? No, but it just decreased a little bit of load on me. And the fact, and that was, by the way, so that screen had 3 tabs: chat, which you're all familiar with; Cowork, which is the non-coder friendly version of Claude Code. It's just a general agent. It does stuff for you, which is what you just saw. So in Greg's terms of this kind of parlor trick idea, uh, there is no reason for you to not have a deck or a working prototype up for a client based on, even an AI transcript of a call. And that doesn't mean it's AI slop or something that's put out. I put in very clearly stuff I worked hard on in the past. I just didn't need to recreate that effort. It knew my thoughts. Sometimes I'll also add in kind of audio and just while I'm walking the dogs, dictate to it what I want, what I think needs to be better. So if you are a good manager or director of people and work, you will be good with AI. It will just do things for you. So I really encourage people. The reason I show that is to show you like, this is a task we all know what goes into. We all know how long it would have taken. And I just showed you how long it took with AI. I want to move on. I know I want to get to some Q&A, but first I have another promotion for Mallory and Greg. They get to fly with their Iron Man suits.
Are you
Um,
using Nano Banana and VO3, or what are you using? Sora 2?
yeah,
What's
yeah.
what were you using?
And
Yeah.
VO3 had some problems with me asking for an Iron Man suit, so I had to inform them as a lawyer it's not a copyright violation. Um, so to tee up kind of this next quick section here, I want and hopefully this poll software is working more quickly, but I want everyone to think about whether you've delivered an AI wow moment to a client. And I'm not going to define that, although I do have an option. Well, what's a wow moment? Um, just tell us kind of yes or no while we're going through this, whether you think you've done this and any time in history, whether you've delivered an AI wow moment. And I don't need to get into kind of the technicals of what that was, but I'd like to hear a little storytelling from Greg. We've heard a little bit from Greg on this already, and from Mallory of like what was their reaction. I know Greg, you had the kind of parlor trick reaction of like, wow, if you can ship this fast, what else can you do for me when you really try? So I'd love to hear a little bit more about those reactions. At AI Digital, we actually measure these. These are a KPI because it's quantitative. And of course, it's a little fluffy, but we think this matters when our clients are really happy with us. And so, if you call it a CSAT survey, everyone's like, oh, that sounds formal. But if you're just asking if someone's really happy and they've said so, it seems less formal, but it's really the same thing. So I'd love to hear maybe Mallory first as we wait for these results to slowly stream in.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I'm kind of a firm believer that most of the really good AI wow moments, they maybe don't know are AI wow moments if you're doing it really well. It's just a wow moment to them. But I think, yes, these definitely exist for us. And I think a lot of times this is right now is happening when we're delivering spec work for clients, especially when it's coming into a pitch scenario or an opportunity where we're not really so sure on the inputs. We've got to make some assumptions and some guesses. So it might not be like the final version of what we're going to actually put together. But we all know what the RFP process looks like, right? But I think sometimes clients can struggle, we can struggle to conceptualize what the outputs of the idea might look like. So when you're talking concepts and it's really high level and, in the olden days, you go in maybe with no spec and you're talking about what a storyboard or a mood board would look like that's not a real great way to win in the moment. And so being able to take some of like really great conceptual ideas and put them into a visual for clients, I think those are the places where we've started to see really strong wins from AI. And we David do measure those also. We measure them a little differently, like through client feedback and satisfaction. It's same concept, but some of them, we identify that they're AI. We're very clear about our use of AI in any of the materials that are coming over. But I think a lot of times they're just like, wow, this is really great spec work. Like these are awesome wins. Or, for one new business pitch, there was a concept about wrapping a truck in a really cool kind of wrapper. And I think to write it on paper would have never done it the justice. And based on the timelines the teams were working on, there's no way we would have had the mock up to the point that we did. And we were able to actually take it and get it 3D printed so that there was a physical something on the table when we were coming into the room to share it. So it's just a cool way to kind of bring the experience to life for people. And why wouldn't you if you can? And it's so much easier to do. And the time and energy put into it can be so much lower lift and be so much greater impact. So,
Ready to go now, David?
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
That was awesome, Matt. Look, Matt, we got to work together, like
I know,
outside of
Craig.
this. Like that was awesome. But my, you know, not to sound arrogant, but I get to see a lot of them every week because a lot of people I'm interfacing with have never actually seen what AI can do. And right, and when they see it start to cook on screen and they can't take their eyes off the screen, right, you know that it is happening and it's starting to click. But one of them, back in December, I was in my wife's side of the family is from Costa Rica, and we go there every December to see family and things. And I was someone asked me, they said, hey, could you come talk to our executive team? I was in one of your training sessions. I'd love for you to come talk to them. And they were a power company. And I said, sure. I said, but I'm in Costa Rica, so I have to do it in between like vacation and with the kids. It was like over the holidays. And so in about 5 hours, I was able to do deep research on their company, understand more about their company, understand what they're likely going to focus on next with just publicly available information, right? Uh, and show up into the meeting and their executive team. And so their CEO said, "Hey, you're looking at building this product next for our company." I say, great that you said that. I actually built you a prototype on the thing that AI told me that you're most likely to look to want to do. So not only did I know what they were expecting to focus on in 2026, I built them a prototype and lovable. Then I created an actual pitch deck for them in GenSpark, and then used VO3 to create a mini commercial for all in 5 hours, right? So I understood their business, understood where they were likely going to go with their business, built them a prototype, and I said, the person asked me to bring them there, and the CEO, I said, did I help you understand? He's like, you did exactly what we thought. You made us feel very minuscule and that we don't understand and we need to talk to you later. And it's like, that was not my intent. My intent was just to show you what you could do with these tools. But
That's a lot of wow moments packaged into one. But that leads me into, I guess, a final question before we take some of the audience question of this idea of leadership alignment. Greg, you touched on it. It is like one of the red flags we identified, right? This is familiar. The CEO or someone in leadership says, innovate. The CFO says, we don't have budget for that. The creative director says, I don't want to use AI. I'm the creative guy. Mallory, quickly, and then Greg, how did you guys get leadership on the same page? Was there like a moment it clicked for people? Greg, I know you're the boss, so it might be a different story, but I also know you have a dozen anecdotes for this with other companies. So I'd love to hear a little bit from both perspectives.
Yeah, I think I don't know if there's a moment it clicked necessarily, but I think it's a lot of trust building over time. And we've had really good successes with some of the minor test and learn experimentation that sort of started to demonstrate, look, there's something real and tangible to this. And I think, I'm fortunate. I have a really great team that surrounds me, and they are all in on, if we decide we're all in together. And I think that's not to say that there's not like discourse and disagreement. And I think there's definitely different levels of comfort with the level of which we lean in. But I think it's just about continuing to show people, don't tell them. So bring them along, like exactly what you're saying, Greg. Like as soon as you're able to demonstrate it and you have a problem and you use the AI solution to solve it, and then you show them how easy it was to get to that place, it makes the conversation super easy to just like, why would you say no to that? What are the real barriers, right? Because all the barriers you raise are minor compared to what you just saved for what you've been able to deliver and do on the output side, and how many problems it just solved for the organization. So I think there's, of course, like the theoretical longer term implications from a societal perspective. And I think we also are careful consideration of what that what those means are, and also making sure that staff feels supported and that we're really trying to build them a space. Like the work world, we just had this conversation on a internal call this morning. Like the work world is not slowing down. The expectations of clients are only growing exponentially. And if we want to be here in another 38 years, like we have to shift, we have to move, and we have to embrace the opportunity to do work smarter or work, smarter, not harder. And, we have that conversation pretty regularly. So I think it's just about continuing to be clear communicators, demonstrating the successes, demonstrating the failures too, right? Where are we learning and how are we optimizing along the way? But I think, we've been fortunate that we've got some really great team members that have been open as soon as the eyes have been opened around it.
Greg, anything to add to that? What I hear from that is basically show, don't tell, and have a team kind of rowing in the boat together.
yeah, it's no, I agree. And it starts at the top, right? Like you have to have the reason why I have 35 Gen AI certifications is I basically try to get one in every kind of role inside of an organization to figure out I was trying to figure out all the different pushback, David, like you were showing earlier, right? So I have one for AI, data analytics, one for talent, creative, marketing, right? But I always start with I'm at my point in my career where I call executives out, right? And I say, look, this is the greatest technology, it affects every single human on the planet, which means it affects every single employee in your organization, right? This is not a typical digital transformation where you only have to worry about one or two potential saboteurs in the IT department. It's like now you're not telling them where they fit in this story arc, right? You're not being transparent and having enough, courage to tell them where they fit. And so now you have 90% of your organization rowing against you, right? And so what I always do is I use the same Upton Sinclair quote from 1934 when I start my presentations. And it's like, it's difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon his not understanding it, right? And I always tell folks that's not about ignorance, it's about future shock or loss aversion, right? It's this idea that we create this analog to a past because we don't really understand our role in the future, right? And so you have to have the courage to build in public. You have to have the courage to admit what you don't know, right? And so I use a kind of I call my four ways in as a framework, which is intelligence, inspiration, innovation, and infrastructure, right? That's basically how I've sold. That's basically how I get people to adopt things. I start with the intelligence, which is around literacy, right? We gave every single person at Walk West has one GNI certification. I said, we're going to take a 90-day period. I don't care what you get certified in. I don't care what tool it is. Go out there, be free, learn, right? And because I believe in, you got to do three things. You got to make it personal, fun, and safe. If you don't make it personal, fun, and safe, why would any employee even care about this, right? But once you make it personal, how is their work going to change radically, right? We showed a couple of different examples and ideas, but there is an AI angle for every single role in your organization. Figure out how you can help them personally, then they're going to lean in a lot more because their quality of work. Now we have time where we can sit around later in the afternoon and have a more strategic conversation, right? And we can brainstorm and come up with new ideas because we're not spending. I disagree with what you said earlier, David, about it doesn't take that much time to build a deck. I've seen people spend hours, if not days, creating the perfect deck. Like that is not an exaggeration. It's someone that
I
spent a
take
lot
it
of time
back.
in boardrooms.
I'm with
That's a
you.
lot of time because people want that pixel right. Should I put this or that? But using AI as a thought partner. But anyway, there's just a lot of different ways, but make it personal, fun, and safe for your people. And have some courage to admit what you don't know. And when I show stuff, you show the duck. I showed a duck one time trying to do the same thing. It had 8 feet and and all of the team. And I was like, I did this intentionally. I want you to see when I messed up. It's okay.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. I know I'm going to try to answer. I know we had a couple quick questions. One of the questions was how many respondents were in our survey data. It was about 150 agencies. I don't know the exact number of people that, because multiple people from each agency often responded. So I expect it was multiples of this. Someone asked if they were real people or AI generated. They were real people, but the charts about it were AI generated, based on real data. Got a question about what are you doing to keep client information confidential while using AI? Greg, do you want to take a stab at that quickly?
Yeah, one of my AI certifications was AI for cybersecurity, and I always get that question. And the first thing I always respond is say, well, what is your data policy? Right? Because the underlying question is not about AI. The underlying question is what do you do with PII data and client data in particular? Now, outside of that, you mentioned earlier shadow AI was the real thing, right? People thought the guardrail was just tell them they can't use it. It's just like back in the day when mobile, I'm old enough to realize, or remember when people said you can't bring your phone. I was like, I wish you would take this out of my pocket, right? Like I'm going to bring my phone, I'm going to bring my shadow AI. So you have to get enterprise accounts, is just thing one. You get the enterprise accounts, say if you're a Microsoft company, you have Microsoft Copilot, or if you're a Google Workspace, get Gemini, whatever, and you get an enterprise agreement around the training data, the indemnification, but you also have to train your people. That's another problem with just being curious. They don't know what should go or should not go. But first and foremost, follow your data policy. If you don't have one of those, then that's a problem. Work through that. But then secondly, give them the actual training so they understand what should go in there and what shouldn't. And if it's highly sensitive things, there's tons of tools out there that can mask, this confidential information, or you can teach them how to pull things out and still get the value that they want. Right. But then have open and honest conversations with your customers also. It's not as if they're not using these tools or unaware of these. Right.
Yeah, I totally agree. Also, just think about the frameworks that you use for other SaaS tools. I had someone ask me the other day about, you have this web app that has our data in it. How do we make sure it doesn't go into other, mix with other data? And it wasn't kind of a model training question. It was just like, well, you have HubSpot or Salesforce or Slack or Gmail, and other people also have that. They're separate. They don't mix. So sometimes people kind of get intimidated by this new technology. And of course, there are new dimensions to it, like you suggested. But all these things you said, having a data policy, a governance policy, there is precedent for this. You don't need to start from scratch. And that's what some of what we do at AI Digital Labs. So kind of the way I frame it is this twin track framework, right? You don't need to choose between immediate results and long-term capability. Long-term capability takes time. It takes training. It takes 35 AI certifications, right? You don't just skip steps to do that. You have to put in, roll up your sleeves and do it. But you also have the CEO yelling in the background, I need AI results now, or the board, asking for this. And so that's what we are delivering at AI Digital, this kind of capability building framework that also gives you results now in the kind of core media business, and beyond that, just helping you as a business partner. So I think that's all the questions that we had. I do want to leave with, I think, the theme that we echoed today, that the advantage really goes to those who act and act now. I want to really sincerely thank Mallory and Greg. Seriously, thank you both. You have excellent practical insights for everyone watching. And for everyone watching, if today's conversation made you a little uncomfortable, I know Greg's happy about where your agency stands today. We let him be a little bit the bad guy at the end too. I took some of his thunder at the beginning, but if it made you a little uncomfortable about where you stand, good. That's the point, because the best thing you can do now is act. I know we went a couple minutes over time, but I really appreciate everyone joining, particularly I thank Greg and Mallory for their time. And I know we'll have some follow-up materials. And if you're interested in learning more, AI Digital Labs is built to help you with exactly these issues. And I know Greg does a lot of this work as well, as does Mallory, and I'm sure they'd love to hear from you as well. Thanks, everyone.